Alright, good evening, brutes. Welcome back to Shit Shirt Sundays. Today's video, we're going to be looking at 3 growth stocks that I've been picking up a few shares recently. I'm going to explain exactly what those 3 companies are, and I'm going to give price predictions for those companies for the next 10 years. So when I'm looking into growth companies, I'm kind of getting a little bit hesitant of putting a lot of money into the stock market right now. I think there's a lot of speculative mania in the stock market right now, so I haven't really been putting in a huge amount of money. I'm being more focused on cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin in particular, and some other cryptocurrencies. So I'll probably be releasing a video on altcoins, so other cryptocurrencies in the near future, top 3 altcoins in the near future. So if you're interested in that and haven't subscribed already, make sure you hit that big red juicy button. And while you're there, might as well hit the thumbs up button, would really mean the world to me. So with all that said, let me explain what kind of companies I like to look for when I'm looking in a growth company. I'm always looking for a visionary CEO, and it helps if they're the founder and if they have enormous, ambitious plans for the next decade. So I'm a kind of a long-term investor, so I'm not looking for, quick speculative bets that, like the GameStop stock that went crazy recently. I did lose some money in that, but only like for a little bit of fun. I wasn't trying to make any money in that, but I'm kind of always looking for extremely long-term picture, 5 to 10 year growth stories. So I'm looking for CEOs and leaders who share that same mindset, because that's where you can actually make enormous amounts of money over the long term instead of trying to make 10% here and 10% there. Long-term thinking is the kind of investor I am. So number 1, visionary CEO who shares that same long-term mindset as myself. Number 2, a huge total addressable market. This is really important when you're investing into a growth company. Like, they might be growing a lot, but maybe they can't expand out of the country that they're in, or maybe the niche or industry that they're selling to isn't that big. But if there's an enormous total addressable market, that really helps. So as I said, I'm not really interested in short-term valuations. I don't look at price to earnings ratios of the current market cap or price to sales ratio of the current market cap very, very much, or I don't really look out 1 to 2 years. The 2020s will be one of the most transformative decades of human history. So people can't really wrap their minds around the exponential growth that is about to come in innovation and disruption and technology. Everything's going to change much faster than it ever has before. So it's difficult for people to wrap their minds around it. But once you start looking at a 5 to 10 year time horizon, and you start doing your valuation models until those times, that's when you can really see the enormous growth that some of these companies could potentially have. So let's start it off with number 1 of my picks that I've been picking up some shares of, and that's Lemonade. All right, so Lemonade is digital insurance on an app which uses artificial intelligence to pay out claims and to give you quotes. So because it uses artificial intelligence to both pay out claims and give you quotes, it's really, really fast and really, really accurate. And because they get more and more data from the more and more customers that come onto their service, the better the AI gets and the more accurate the pricing for your quote, and the more accurate it is at paying out legitimate claims and flagging out fraudulent claims. So it's a virtuous cycle. So the more customers that come on board, the better the AI gets trained, the more data it has, the better the pricing is. So the better the pricing is, the more customers come on board, and you see this virtuous cycle where they get more and more customers, and they're able to more accurately price the quotes, which means they'll make more money, and which means the customers will be happier. So when you're investing in Lemonade, you're kind of betting on artificial intelligence to get better and better with time. And as we know, that generally does happen. The other really nice and smart thing that Lemonade does is that they target the younger market. So why do they target the younger market when, like, a 50-year-old man who lives in a mansion is going to spend way more on insurance per year than me? Say I'm moving into my first rental property. I'm like 30 years old, let's say. This is my first time getting insurance. I'm only going to spend $20 a month, where this guy is going to spend $5,000 a month. The reason is I have a much higher lifetime value, and the insurance industry is quite sticky. What do I mean by sticky? It means that once you signed up with one insurance agent, it takes a lot of money or a lot of promotion to try and get you to swap to a different insurance agent. So if Lemonade has good enough customer services, good enough pricing to keep me there, and because it's all on an app, very intuitive to, the millennial generation, they're able to keep me on this platform for my whole life. I will end up spending a lot of money with Lemonade over the long term. So you get this lovely double whammy when you invest in Lemonade. So Lemonade are growing their customer base. So they're growing their revenues by just growing the number of customers that they're getting. However, they're also growing the amount that each customer is spending with them every year. So as their customers get older and older, they end up getting more insurance on more and more things. They might go from just renting an apartment to buying a house, and which obviously requires more insurance than just a rental property. Or they might start getting a car, or they might start getting a pet. So let's look at this statistic here. Customers who joined Lemonade 3 years ago now spend 56% more. So you get that double whammy of growth. So that's one of the reasons that Lemonade looks crazy expensive from any sort of valuation metrics. Price to sales multiple of like 90 or something insane. Price to earnings ratio, let's not even go there. But that's one of the reasons. They're not really earning very much money from their customers right now, but that the amount of money that they're earning from their present customers is growing, and it will grow a lot, because there's an enormous difference between the amount that a 50-year-old man spends for insurance and a 30-year-old first-time insurer spends. Finally, the last thing about Lemonade that I like is that it's an absolutely enormous industry that is completely ripe for a disruption. The insurance industry makes up 11% of GDP in the US, 11%, and something like 20% of the Fortune 500 companies are insurance companies. So there's enormous revenues to be made in the insurance industry. So just for a sense of scale, Geico and Chubb both have market caps around 80 billion, and they're like the biggest insurance agencies in the US. So about 80 billion for market cap, and Lemonade is like still under 10 billion market cap. And their price to sales ratio is like 1. So they earn like $80 billion in revenue each. And they have a really low price to sales ratio because they're not growing at all. But say Lemonade took a significant market share from Geico and Chubb, or got to a similar amount of revenue, then you can see that Lemonade, because it's a growing company, could have a price to sales ratio of 5 or 10. And then you can start to see how Lemonade could be in the hundreds of billions of market cap in 5 to 10 years. All right, so the doggo wanted to get into the video. He wouldn't leave me alone. So hello, YouTube. So we're going to be moving on to stock number 2, which is Square. Now, the reason I'm interested in Square was because I recently read Ark Invest's Big Ideas 2021. And yeah, I started investing in Square when it was like 40, 50, 60, $70. Then it went all the way up to 200. I kind of stopped buying it. So the reason I wanted to invest a bit more in Square is, as we can see from this graph, you can see the speed of digital wallet growers. So there in green is Cash App, and in purple is Venmo. And I believe that Cash App is actually growing faster and will outtake Venmo in the short to near term future. Now, why are they growing so fast? You can see they grew so much faster than JP Morgan and are already outtaking them. It's because they have such a low customer acquisition cost. So their customer acquisition cost is like $20, whereas a normal traditional bank is like at least $1,000 to acquire a customer, depending on whatever services you want to get. So their customer acquisition costs are so low because they have viral marketing, amazing marketing team at Cash App, and also because of the network effects that comes with Cash App. So if I get Cash App, I'm so incentivized to try and get all my friends to get Cash App so I can easily send them money. So that's the virality of the Cash App, and that's why it's growing so fast. So the statistic that I found most interesting from Big Ideas 2021 was at maturity here, this slide here, that at maturity, each digital wallet user could be worth $20,000. Now, if we imagine that Cash App could get to a user base of 100 million, which I think is very, very conservative, seeing how far they're growing or how fast they're growing right now. 100 million, well, there's already 230 million digital wallet users in the US. To think that Cash App only get to 100 million is very, very conservative, and they'll probably get to a lot more. And we're not even considering that Cash App will be probably expanded into other countries, not just the United States. I'm pretty sure it's already expanding into Australia. However, let's just say 100 million, and let's not use the figure of 20,000 per user that Ark Invest give here. Let's just give 10,000 per user. That's a value of $1 trillion, which is a 10x for Square just from Cash App alone. And that's just being very, very conservative. So that's the main reason I wanted to put a little bit more money into Square right now. So it's a easy 10x over the next 10 years just from Cash App alone. Like maybe Cash App itself should just be worth $100 million right now. or $100 billion. But I also think Cash App has an enormous opportunity, and Square as well, with cryptocurrencies and particularly Bitcoin. Jack Dorsey, again, another visionary CEO. He's one of the more famous people in the Bitcoin community and Bitcoin space. So as I believe that cryptocurrencies will become a larger part, and particularly Bitcoin, a larger part of our economy and normalized throughout our economy over the next 5 to 10 years in the likes of payments and wealth storage, I think Cash App and Square are in a prime space because they already offer Bitcoin on their platform. They're already making an enormous amount of revenue from selling Bitcoin on their platform. So I think they're in a prime position to benefit from this transition to cryptocurrencies that I see coming over the next 5 to 10 years. To add to that, they also offer stocks, as we can see, payments, insurance, potentially mortgages, saving and investments. So there's enormous opportunity for Square in the future. So getting on to stock number 3, the final stock of the bunch, and it's Big Daddy Tesla. So Tesla already makes up 60% of my stock portfolio, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But it's partly because it grew quite a lot, but also because it was my biggest investment in the beginning of my stock portfolio. One of the reasons I'm very interested in Tesla still is because I think everyone's sleeping on the opportunity of the robotaxi network, and the only people who are aware of it or think it's going to happen, believe it's going to happen, or know it's going to happen are people who are Tesla fanboys. So I think the majority of people are completely sleeping on the robotaxi network, don't think it's really going to happen, can't imagine it. Like when I talk to my friends, they're like, yeah, is that really going to happen though? Like people like myself know it's going to happen. It makes so much sense for it to happen. Tesla are so close to full self-driving. They should have full self-driving in 1 to 2 years, like completely much better than a human full self-driving. And then you just have to wait for regulatory approval. And then just like overnight, it becomes so much cheaper to get a robotaxi everywhere than to get any other form of transport. So much more convenient and so much cheaper to get a robotaxi everywhere. So let's look at some statistics. So again, according to ARK Invest, now I take everything ARK Invest say with a grain of salt because they're not right every time, but they're definitely right more than say JP Morgan in my opinion. But according to ARK Invest, they think autonomous ride-hailing platforms will generate $1 trillion in profits by 2030. Just basically the Uber of autonomous taxis will generate $1 trillion in profits by 2030, according to ARK Invest. So the profits are obviously so high because it's essentially just software. So it's a very high profit margin business. So if you stick a 20 PE ratio on $1 trillion of profit, you can start to see where the market caps could take you in the future. Now, I think Tesla will dominate the robotaxi network space because they're already so far ahead. And that's just for the app that gets you your robotaxi and everything like that. That's what that generates, just the Uber app that does that. Now, once you add into the fact that Tesla actually also makes the car and also makes the software that does the full self-driving for you. Yeah, so let's start working out a potential price target for Tesla using this model. So let's say we're gonna go with Tesla's own predictions for 2030. So I'm a long-term investor, as I say, so I'm looking out until 2030. So in 2030, Elon Musk says they're aiming to sell 20 million cars in 2030. Now, will they be able to sell so many? It kind of depends, but if robotaxi takes off, people are not going to be buying cars so much because there's no point in buying a car because owning a car is much more expensive than just getting a robotaxi everywhere. As you can see from ARK Invest's graph here, it's much cheaper to just get a robotaxi everywhere. Cheaper, more convenient, etc., etc. Don't have to pay for parking. You get driven exactly to the place you want, and then the car goes off. You don't have to go park and then walk to your destination, etc. And you don't have to pay tax, insurance, etc. You just get into the robotaxi and it takes you exactly where you want to go at exactly the time you want to go. So a lot of people won't bother buying their own personal vehicle if they live in cities in the future, in my opinion. And if you think about it, why would you? Like, unless you live out in the countryside, there's not really much point buying your own personal car unless you want to just have it for fun. Anyway, I'm still going to stick with the 20 million cars because even though I think less cars will be sold, I still think Tesla will sell most of the cars. So we're going to go with 20 million cars with an average selling price of 25,000 per vehicle, which I think is fair because, yeah, the cheapest model now is $35,000, but they're going to bring out 25k car soon. And eventually in 10 years time, they'll probably have an even cheaper car, let's say $15,000. Although there's also going to be the Roadster, there's also going to be the semi-truck, there's also going to be all these other vehicles that are like $80,000, the Model S, the Cybertruck, they're all going to be much higher selling prices. So let's just say a conservative $25,000 average selling price at 20 million cars gives you $0.5 trillion in revenue. Now, Elon Musk says that the full self-driving eventually is going to cost the same amount as the car itself because it's going to be just as valuable. But we're going to just say that only half the cars get full self-driving, even though I'd say most cars will, probably 99% of cars will get full self-driving because it's so useful. Like, why would you waste hours driving the car yourself? Most people won't even bother getting driving licenses. People my age won't get a driving license. Why would you bother when you can just get the car to drive yourself and you can work or you can watch Netflix as you're getting chauffeured around? Anyway, let's just say half the cars sold get the full self-driving, and that's $20,000 per car. That gives another $0.3 trillion in revenue, which is actually almost pure profit. Once you have the full self-driving software, you can just basically sell it for however much you want, and that's pure profit. You don't have to manufacture anything. You can just license it to someone. So now we're on to $0.8 trillion in revenue for Tesla. Now we can add on insurance, Tesla insurance. I'm not going to get too deep in this, but Tesla will have the best statistics on insurance for car insurance, obviously, because they have all the data of autonomous taxis. They have all the data from autonomous driving and from your own personal driving. So they'll be able to offer the cheapest insurance and the best rates, kind of similar to Lemonade. So Lemonade mightn't do so well in the car insurance sector, in my opinion. But Tesla insurance, we discussed how much insurance makes for companies, and Elon Musk thinks it's going to be at least 20% of the vehicle cost is going to go to insurance. So let's add another 20% of just the selling price of the vehicles. So 20% of 0.5 trillion is 0.1 trillion. So now we're on to 0.9 trillion. And Elon Musk has also said the energy sector of Tesla will be as big as the auto manufacturing sector. So basically solar energy for your house and battery storage, and also battery storage for like large companies that are getting solar power from the sun and they need storage. So Tesla will be able to provide the solar panels and the enormous batteries. So Elon Musk thinks eventually this will be worth the same or produce the same amount of revenue as the car business. So that's another $0.5 trillion in revenue. So now we're well over $1 trillion in revenue, plus the $1 trillion from the robotaxi network. Let's say they get half of that because, yeah, let's say there's Waymo and other crap companies that somehow catch up to Tesla, which I don't think is very likely. So we're well over $1 trillion, probably into the $2 trillion in revenue by 2030. You can also add on like the HVAC system, so the air conditioning and heating system that Tesla will develop in the future. They already have the best one in the world for their cars, so they can just extend this into the homes easily once they have enough engineers and factories. And let's not take into account any of the other stuff that they might invent in the meantime, like a van, like a electric plane. There's talks that Tesla will eventually do an electric plane, a little vertical takeoff and landing jet. There's plenty of other little inventions that Elon Musk will come up with that could be worth hundreds of billions or even trillions produce trillions in revenue. So let's say Tesla's revenue in 2030 is somewhere between 2 trillion and basically an infinite amount of trillions that they could earn depending on how much they dominate. But let's say like 2 trillion to $10 trillion in revenue, which I know seems absolutely insane right now, but once you kind of break it all down, it's completely possible and probably quite likely. So 2 trillion to 10 trillion in revenue. If you stick on a price to sales ratio, 5 to 10 for a price to sales ratio, gives us a market cap anywhere from 10 trillion to 100 trillion. So 10 trillion to 100 trillion equals a stock price of anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 per share by 2030. So I'd say I think the most likely outcome is somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 per share. So you can see this is easily a 10x, probably more in my opinion. All right, so if you enjoyed the video, I'd hugely appreciate it if you could smash the thumbs up button, share the video with a friend if you thought they were interesting stock picks, or they kind of opened your mind up to these stocks, kind of shed some light on the different ways that these companies can make money in the future. Subscribe if you haven't already. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Goodbye.